This week on the show, Frederick Van Johnson joins us to ask, who are we? Why are we? And how did we get here? I'm photographer Brian Fisher.
And I'm model Roxanne Callie.
And this is TWiP GLAM.
Welcome back to TWiP GLAM, This Week in Photography's Glamour podcast.
TWiP GLAM is This Week in Photography's latest podcast exploring the glamour community. Each week, we take you through a photographer's portfolio or take a deep dive into glamour photography.
Today we have Frederick Van Johnson with us, and he is the editor-in-chief of TWiP Networks. Hi,
Hey,
Frederick.
How you doing?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hi, wonderful, thanks.
So, we have a new show.
We do.
The TWiP network grows and grows and grows.
But grows. When you say it like that, Brian, it sounds like it's cancerous or something.
Well, if you're the competition.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It grows, but it's a planned, strategic growth, kind of like a garden. You know, we're just plowing and seeding rows and watering them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, our little farm here started a couple of years back. Roxanne and I ran a little hobby podcast, we'll call it.
Audio only.
Audio only with a slideshow,
Yeah.
a model photography showcase. And it was a good run. We ran it for a year, and we were like, should we do another year? And then Frederick announced that there was going to be a network, and we went, yeah, there's going to be some more.
Yes.
Yeah.
I slaved long hours over this whole studio, built it all myself. Brian had nothing to do with it.
I just sat in the corner crying the whole time. It was very
Crying, playing
stressful.
Xbox, crying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, I
Brian
think
built the whole thing.
This show is needed, I think, because it fills a slot, an obvious hole that's been missing in the network, and that's this whole glamour kind of, how do you do this kind of photography world? And one of the things I wanted to chat with you guys about is like, how do you draw the line between glamour and fashion? And is there a line between glamour and
For
fashion?
sure. And it is a tough one to draw a line.
It's a line. It's a little blurry.
Yes.
And it is in the eye of the beholder. There are people that look at a fashion shoot and go, hey, that's, too far. It's too sexy. And you're like, it's jeans.
Yeah.
That's,
Even though she's not wearing a shirt. Just kidding.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just trying to draw attention to the jeans and away from the jeans.
Admittedly, our show is going to be on the broadside. We are aiming glamorous, but we certainly have lined up people that are fashion-oriented. And in some of our segments, we'll actually drift off. If we find something that is really cool, so long as it's got a person in it, we're interested. We want to see it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. My definition is very similar. I look at it more simplistically, and I think of fashion as being all about the clothes, and you're trying to sell clothes, right?
Yes.
So at the end of the day, everything that a fashion photographer does, for the most part, is about a garment or how garments are going to look, so people can visualize what they would look like in those garments if they were to purchase them. Glamour, on the other hand, can leak into that world, but I think glamour is more about the human form and the body and sexual allure, and the scene and all that stuff, and the clothing. Optional, the clothing is optional, but it's not even if there was clothing involved, it's not the focus of the shoot itself. The person is the focus of the shoot.
The irony being that last three sentences you just said encompassed 4 of our potential names for the show.
Yeah.
You should talk about that, because that was an exercise in and of
Oh
itself.
my goodness,
That
it
was
went
so
on
fun.
and on. And then I think the actual name finally was an off the cuff. We could just call it Glamour and be on with it. And then Frederick's like, Glam. That's it.
Yeah. Exclamation point.
Yeah, we're done.
Sold. Yeah.
And all I could think of was like, oh, thank God somebody put their foot down.
Good. Done. Yeah.
Glam, last nail in the coffin. Move on, people. Nothing to see here.
It's a great field where our podcast can be a little different than all of the, well, all right, it's going to be a lot different. Firstly, we are not going to be the same show every week. We are going to be on a TikTok cycle. So we will have shows where we take a photographer, model, makeup artist, clothing designer, or body painter,
Yeah.
and we will be going through their portfolio. We take 10 to 12 images, we sort of deconstruct them, and we are interested in the image, obviously, but we're really looking at the technique. Not necessarily, we're not going to dive into, are you a Micro Four Thirds or a Canon or a whatever. We want to know where the light came from, how it came. Were you, chased by a wild tiger during the shoot? We want the stories.
Yeah.
And
It's
we want the
also-
techniques.
It's also about the idea. Where did you get this idea? How did this materialize and come into being?
I think inspiration is something that is not given enough time. If you go looking for a YouTube video on how somebody was inspired to do something, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so happy you said that, because that's been one of the things that I plan on ranting about a lot in 2017, and I think I talked about this on one of the recent episodes of This Week in Photo, and that's the idea that there's a lot of amazing photography out there. Go pick your site, 500px, Flickr, whatever. There's a lot of amazing shots out there, and there are more and more photographers coming into the fold, which is fueling this rapid kind of deployment of brand new camera bodies every week that we see.
Yes.
So there's all this stuff that's happening, and we keep seeing highly competent photography both on the composition side and on the technical side. But what's missing, like you alluded to, Brian, what's missing is, from my perspective, the story piece of it. So now, since that's been in my head, that's been like a fly in my ear. Every time I look at a great photo, my brain automatically goes to, why did they shoot this? Like, it's a great shot of, let's say El Capitan in Yosemite. That's beautiful, but what's the story of it? I at least want to see a couple of caption stories like, yeah, we were going to climb the El Capitan, but we chickened out, so we took this photo instead. Or, something like that, rather than, hey, here's a great shot. Make of it what you will. Here's a great shot of, some clouds. Make of it what you will. Here's, something behind it that tells a story. Because the whole idea of photography, or photojournalism, if you want to take it in that direction, is to illustrate a story and to tell a story, not just to give people a bunch of cool ingredients and say, hey,
Make your own
what do you
story.
think? Yeah, what do you think
Absolutely.
of that? Here's a great shot I did yesterday with my phone. What do you think of that? That's what Instagram is. It's like, what do you think of that? Like.
Yeah. That's
it.
what we're all about here, is explaining the process and what's behind the process.
So those are even episodes. They run about an hour. They go through somebody's portfolio and give you inspiration. On the even weeks, those are shorter episodes. They tend to be a dive into a single subject. For example, what camera was on the desk last week? Was it interesting? Is there something in the news that's appropriate for us to talk about? We may also be going into user pictures, if you want to submit a user picture. We'll probably also look at software choices. What's the latest and most interesting? What's not seen by the major vendors as important, but is important to us. The Odd Week episodes should be really interesting, and we're aiming, those will be shorter. You'll be able to sit down, digest one in 10 or 15 minutes, and away you'll go.
Yeah. Yeah, little bite-sized nuggets of information. Right?
Yeah, and that will do a couple of things for us. That will allow us to explore, but still have a core of looking into people's portfolios. I think it's going to be a really enjoyable mix.
That's cool.
Agreed.
That's cool. So what's the format of this show going to be? So obviously video, right? So
we're quite
video
different.
and shorter.
We are video for all of our episodes. Thank goodness we built a great big set to do it, and we plan on using it.
He says we loosely.
Roxanne. Our format is very simple. For the long shows, bring on a guest, show you about a dozen of their pictures, talk about them, show you how to see the guest, and we're done. We are not chopping it into lots of pieces. This lets somebody sort of start and stop, and very predictable for the long shows. The short shows, again, their format will be a little random, which should keep it interesting.
For us too.
Yes. We're going to step into a bit of work from all three of us, so we get to tear each other apart just a little bit.
Yay!
By the way, generally we pick images we like, So this is not going to be like, oh, this is horrible. We're going to pick something that we like, and then we're going to tell you why we like it. And you can extrapolate the bad from there.
Love it.
But we're a glamour podcast. So there's going to be glamorous images, including naked people of both sexes.
Oh, no.
Yes, it's true in a glamour podcast. So
Can't even imagine.
you may be shocked to find out that the mothership over at Apple with iTunes does not want us sending out naked people over the iTunes service.
I don't know why not. It makes life way more fun.
They're funny that way.
It does. It does.
So in that feed, in your iTunes feed, you are going to see some modesty boxes put over things, and it'll be relatively work and family safe. Still glamorous. So if you want the unedited feed, go over to thisweekinphoto.com, watch it on the website, and you will see everything as it was meant to be. Dropping into our first images. So Frederick has presented us with cinemagraphs.
These are so cool. There's action built into the photo.
Yes.
But only partially.
The problem with this is I have a whole new hobby every time I see one. Frederick, do you want to kind of explain the process of how one of these guys comes into existence?
Sure. So the one you're looking at now, I think I forget what I call this one. I think I call it a creepy tea party or something like that. But first I'll explain why I like cinemagraphs and why I don't like cinemagraphs. So the idea, like this is kind of a tangent on my earlier rant about stories. So it's the idea of being able to tell a story in a single frame and looking at that single frame, not through the quote lens of just a still photographer like I've been for the last several decades, but now that we have all these other tools available to us, whether it be audio, the cinemagraphs, video, all these different things, we can use them to tell a story. So instead of looking at, hey, I want to do a shot, and you take a picture, then you illustrate it or you write words for it or whatever, I'm looking at this from the standpoint of conceptualizing the shot, sketching it out, and then figuring out what tools I can use to bring that vision to life versus just shooting something and then like, oh, we got something cool. Let's post that online. It's the exact opposite where you say, okay, I feel like I want to do a shot of a girl with a teapot. I want the teapot slightly larger than life, so we're gonna have to use a wide-angle lens. We want this kind of look and feel, so we need to shoot it in kind of a distressed location. We're gonna add some motion to it, so maybe we should make sure some of the articles of clothing she has on will move when we turn the fan on. All these different things were thought of before we even started shooting. Mm-hmm. The actual process of this shot is relatively simple. This shot was done with a Lumix GH4, a Panasonic Lumix GH4 on a tripod. I think this was shot on one of those little Mi Photo tripods, and it was shot in 4K. So a cinematograph like this is essentially just a clip of 4K video that has certain elements animated. So the whole thing is frozen, and then you reveal the motion in certain areas, and that's the technique for getting to where we got. Now, the technique itself is kind of ancillary to the old story, or to the story that we're trying to tell with it. It's, it was part of the toolkit that I used to bring this thing to life.
Using the wide-angle lens, more than just expanding the teapot, you could have brought that really close to any number of lenses, but it gave those curves in the lines in the background, and it added to that sort of Alice in Wonderland kind of feel about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it did. And, literally, I think that was shot with a 15 millimeter f1.4, f1.2, and which is, I think, the equivalent of a 30 millimeter on a full frame camera because of the crop factor. But this shot, when we put it together, all the pieces in it we purchased the day, I think maybe like 4 hours before we actually did the shoot. Everything you see in this scene, pretty much everything except the furniture, which was already there, everything you see in the scene came from a Goodwill secondhand store.
I love it.
So, and I think we spent probably under $30, $20 or something to get, including the teapot. Everything,
Yeah.
everything, and and the tea, of course.
Oh, oh, really?
But
You didn't spend a lot of money on the tea?
we did actually. It's just colored water. I think. But yeah, and that was it. And we put it all together. But the cool thing, even to rewind back even further, the idea for and knowing what stuff we needed to buy, it all came from collaborating online. Because this model, who was also the stylist, and Tim Engel, this is Christine Allward. Tim Engel they're up in Sacramento, California. We all collaborated through Pinterest and through Google Docs, before we actually set out and met to do the shoot. So we knew what we needed. We knew the shot list. We had concepts. We had example shots of things that we kind of liked. So we're all exactly on the same page when we showed up at this haunted castle to do the shoot.
Cool.
Love it. Tim is definitely on the list of people to bring on the show. His work is fantastic.
Yeah, he's the original DIY photographer.
Oh yeah,
like Home Depot is his lighting place versus B&H, I think.
I think it's great. It's a fabulous image. Again, I love the lines. I love the exaggeration. It feels mildly psychedelic, and the movement really brings it together.
It does. It makes you want to look at it for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's and that was the whole point. Like if it was just a still shot, you would have looked at it and said, "Oh yeah, that's a nice shot. Oh, okay," and then move on to the next one. This one draws you into it, and you have to it gets your brain thinking like, "What is she doing there? Like, what's up with that doll? That's creepy."
Mm-hmm.
A little bit on the production of this shot. It was so once we shot it, and I took it, it went into the post processing phase. There are a couple things that I did, and a couple things that I would do if I were to reimagine this shot. What I did was as you pour the water. Or as she's pouring the water, you can hear it dripping, the water hitting the water, and it reverses back and it goes back into the teapot at the end of the cycle. So,
how interesting.
So if you're looking at it, it's like, wait a minute, that water's flowing in reverse. What is up?
Yeah.
And then there's some atmospheric sound I added in there, so you can hear a little bit of wind blowing in the background. And then there's music, some creepy kid music playing in there. What I would probably do if I were to do this shot again, or re-edit this shot, I'd probably add a layer of atmospherics in there, like some fog or something in there. If I was to shoot it again, I would probably make that doll's eyes blink like every...
That would be good.
Like 10 seconds or something, just randomly. They just blink, just to freak you out.
Yeah, I wonder how many people would notice that.
Exactly. Yeah, but the person that did notice it, like, whoa, wait, what happened?
What?
Yeah. So you can hide little Easter eggs like that in a single frame rather than just click and on to the next one. Right?
Yeah.
Well, and I think the Easter egg is maybe just the Easter egg is kind of a cool twist on it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on to our next picture, this is also Preston Castle, as I think I might have.
This
been
one you got
here.
some fog in there, like you talked about.
Yes, this one we had a fog machine in there.
Oh, very
So this one it was interesting. So Brian, were you there for this one when we shot this one?
I think I was there the shoot before.
Oh yeah.
When you were
Okay,
testing
okay.
everything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So this one again in Preston Castle was upstairs. This is shot in the creepy dormitory. So Preston Castle, for those who don't know, is in a place called a city called Ione, California, or a town called Ione, California, and it is allegedly one of the most haunted, if not the most haunted places in the United States, if you believe in hauntings and all that stuff.
And who doesn't?
Yeah, I don't really, or else I wouldn't have been in that
either.
room. If I believed in that stuff, I would have not gone in that castle at
I
all.
can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Just a slight segue. I was thinking like when we're driving up there, I'm like, if you've ever seen The Grudge, you know that if you believe in the spirit stuff, those things can follow you around.
Oh.
They can attach themselves to you and leave there with you.
But only if you believe in them.
Only if you believe in them. Yeah.
Is that like Santa Claus being real only if you believe in him?
Similar. Without all the occult
So
and death
Santa
and all that.
is
Oh, yeah.
scary? You just wrecked my childhood.
Oh, sorry. Santa's not
Exactly.
scary.
Yeah, actually,
But,
we should say a word about Preston Castle.
Yeah.
Here's a picture of Preston Castle, and here's a couple of pictures of the inside. It is, firstly, it is bona fide creepy.
It is.
It was what would you call it? Not a prison. That's probably the wrong word. It was like a mental institution for the criminally insane children.
Oh.
Like that's being a little salacious. It was not quite that. It was like a halfway house for wayward boys.
Yes.
And it had its own infirmary and all that stuff because it was out in the middle of nowhere, so it had to be self-contained. So it had its own little hospital, their own little cafeteria, and apparently a couple of murders may have happened.
Just a few.
I think I heard a podcast about that.
They weren't bad murders, I don't think.
Yeah.
As
murders go.
Yeah.
Because there are good murders and bad murders.
I guess. There's ones that were more horrorsome than others.
Just one at a time.
They all end the same, right? So.
Yeah.
So the best part about Preston Castle, besides the fact that it is this big, creepy, decrepit building that is amazing backgrounds no matter where you point your eyes,
oh my God, yeah,
is they have Photographer Day.
Very fun.
And so if you are a Californian, you owe it to yourself to go up there for the weekend and they're having their Photographer Day. You will not be disappointed. Absolutely worth your time. And you could take a picture, not just like this, but darn close.
No, you could.
Similar.
You could. So you could do a picture very similar to this. This was very easy to do. In fact, the only things in this shot that we brought with us were the model and her wardrobe and makeup, obviously, and the smoke machine.
Yeah.
That was it. And that little rocking horse was already in that room. I hope I didn't piss off any ghosts that it belonged to.
I hope not, because I shot a model with that rocking horse too.
Did you?
Yes,
so good. The ghost may be on your back instead of mine.
Yeah, I shot this picture here, which is also mildly creepy, but I like yours better.
Yeah, this was fun. In the rocking chair, it was fun. So as you look at these things, you know how you look at photos that you've processed a couple of years ago and you're like, oh, this is what I would do different based on the tools and the skills that I have today versus what I had back then. Mm-hmm. Back then, I was not as deep into video as I am now in terms of editing and, Final Cut Pro and Premiere and all this stuff. I feel much more capable. I'm still by far not an expert in those apps, but I feel much more capable today than I did back then to do things like layering in atmospherics and doing other special effects and object tracking and all that stuff. So what I would do in this shot, because we have the smoke in the background, I would probably add a creepy layer of smoke in the foreground, maybe some dust moving around. I would add this one. I didn't have music in like we had in the creepy doll shot. Mm-hmm. So I'd probably add a little creepy soundtrack to this one, looping. And then I would add one final touch, and that would be a squeak to that rocking chair.
Oh,
so that every time it rocks forward, it just goes, Mm-hmm. So I may redo this shot to add all that stuff in and re-release it, but that's it's cool to be able to do stuff like that. And I think if I do re-release this one, I'll write a short story to go along with it, just so that you're not just looking at this and you're forced to figure out what's going on in the shot. Mm-hmm. I will make up a short little fiction of why this shot is here, and that will accompany the image in the comments on Instagram or Facebook or wherever.
I doubt that it'll be a children's story.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Although if you go back to classical children's stories, they're
creepy.
They are creepy as all.
Anything with a kid in it that's not a cartoon, that's not designed for kids, it's always creepy. It's always, because you can't do like this genre of photography with even a hint of a child involved and have it not be creepy, because it's just just doesn't work.
The thing about my growing up and the movies that were popular then, just in case there's trademarks I'm not going to say, but you'll know in a second. There's sleeping princesses, and they get awoken by men that they don't know, kissing them on the lips.
That is a little. I never thought of it that way.
It's a little rapey. I mean, really.
Well, think of all of our childhood fairy tales. They all have a little bit of weirdness in there. Like Little Red Riding Hood.
Yeah.
Right? Come on. If you think about that plot, it's creepy.
Really creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. The difference is,
it goes on and on.
When we were kids, we were like, that's creepy. The new generation, they're going to be like, ban it.
Yeah,
it cannot be allowed to exist.
Oh yeah. Don't get me started. Yeah, even the Rockabye Baby song, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think about the lyrics to that song. It's about a kid falling to its death.
Yeah, that's horrible.
And that's how we sing our kids to sleep.
Yeah, you're
Good
right.
luck, kiddo.
When the wind blows, the Oh, well, hopefully the bow does not break.
Yeah. Yeah, you're walking out thinking, maybe I shouldn't have bought him that bunk bed.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, man,
I just
fallen
know,
off the top bunk
honey, I
before.
feel like that bow is going to break. We should go home and check on
Yeah, oh, man.
So we are through this series, I'm sure you're going to see lots of Roxanne and I's work, but we're going to take this opportunity to go through a bit of our stuff as well, starting with one of mine, because I got to pick the pictures.
That is beautiful. So where was it shot at, Brian?
I shoot almost exclusively on Pismo and Avila beaches in Central California.
I know them well.
This
They're
picture,
gorgeous.
this funny thing, other than a bit of commercial work, I sort of do a lot of experimental stuff. And this is model goes by the name Kelsey. She will do kind of like Roxanne. You call up and you go, they're never going to go for this. And you pick up the phone and you're like, so Kelsey, I'm going to use super glue and put flowers all over you. And then you're going to run up and down the beach. And she's like, is tomorrow okay? Okay.
That's that Jedi mind trick you have mastered. Right?
I love it.
Wave the hand while you're on the phone.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's, I mean, in all seriousness, one of the issues that a lot of photographers have that are interested in this genre of photography is how you do that. Like how, if you want to do a nude shot or a semi-clothed or nude photo shoot with somebody that you don't know, that's not a family member or girlfriend or whatever, how do you do that? How do you convince them? What are the legalities involved with it? And keep yourself indemnified and the model feeling safe? How do you pull that off?
It sounds like you just described the next couple of our short episodes.
Yeah,
good.
exactly. I think we should go in detail.
Care and
because
feeding.
There's so much detail that goes involved in all
There
that.
is some of it is chutzpah that I don't have. Some of it is knowing how to use the various online forums where you let the model find you, which makes a big difference. We are going to take little miniature deep dives into all of those subjects over the next few weeks. In the case of Kelsey, she came to one of the photography events that I have held in the past. I held about 35 events called portfolio jams, where we would get together between 30 and 250 photographers and models on the beach at the same time and just have a crazy photo shoot together, which seemed to happen because I fed everyone. But anyway,
Stray cats.
funny how that works. But in the case, Kelsey came to one of those. We hit it off immediately, and I think she's an amazing model as far as I like her shape, I like her attitude, and obviously I like that she's somewhat adventuresome. And so this is simply artificial flowers that have been cut really short and medical grade super glue, which although I suspect is chemically identical to regular super glue, I always use a medically approved product if you can get it.
Medical grade just means they can move the decimal point over a little bit when they charge you for it.
And they did. But it is, and I tell you, a single drop per flower. And this picture was a hit. It actually ended up the basis of a sculpture.
That turned out so neat.
Yeah.
That sculpture turned out so neat.
Can we see a shot of the sculpture?
I will attempt to find the picture and put it right here.
I've seen the picture. It exists.
Yeah, no.
I didn't see it.
What I like about the sculpture is not just that it's a sculpture of a girl with flowers or a fairy with flowers. It's that the artist really copied Kelsey's body, gave it very much the same shape. And that's the artist Nicole West, who is an amazing, amazing sculptor. Great shoot, great time. The whole time, this is at Pirates Cove, which is a beach near Pismo, which is a nude beach. I shoot on the nude beach a lot, even when I'm not doing nudes, because generally the crowd at a nude beach is pretty tolerant, as long as you don't point the camera at them.
Yeah.
Sure.
The only thing at this particular picture is, as I was laying on the ground shooting pictures with this, I had a retired AP photographer standing next to me the whole time, about 70 years old, naked, and I was not enjoying the view with a good old man standing next to me.
woman?
It was a dude.
Gentleman.
It was bad.
Well, actually, not a gentleman if he's standing nude behind you.
No,
when
he
you're
was
on the
nice
ground.
enough. He had some great advice. I just wish he'd put pants on for it.
Like, how do you take advice from somebody standing there with their junk hanging out behind you?
Pretty
It's such
funny.
you sit back and you're like, my life has led me to the point in which I'm super gluing flowers onto some girl I barely know. So this is really not that big of a stretch.
Wow. Hey, but some people would pay to do that.
That is true.
Yeah.
I either have been taking pictures of someone, or I'm standing there like, I can't believe I'm on. I've got my makeup artist doing this to this person. And like, our next picture, I
Hey.
happen to
Who's
shoot.
this California bombshell?
That's me.
That girl's amazing.
Yeah, she's incredibly gorgeous.
So this
Look at that.
this is another.
She's staring right through me.
This is the power of having a muse who will try just about anything. This was another typing.
This is interesting.
Hi, Roxanne. I have latex paint and aquarium rocks. Do you want to go to the beach?
Yep, that was.
Brian, how do these ideas come into your head? Are you just like dreaming like, you know what? Latex and rocks.
I
wanna
used to
do
have
that.
kind of a long commute, and a lot of things came to mind over the commute, including not having the commute anymore.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
And now you don't.
No. So tell us about your experience, Roxanne.
Well, we arrived at the beach. It was beautiful weather that day.
Gorgeous.
Gorgeous, which is wonderful because a lot of times when we shoot at the beach, you never know. I laid down and Brian had told me to shave everything. Well, I thought I'd shaved everything. I didn't know he meant
your head has hair on it. I
everything.
just want to go on record.
I said the neck down.
Yep, yes.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm kind of glad I didn't shave everything because I think it helped the latex paint stay
Yes,
a little
it did
bit more.
stay.
It was just, it stayed longer than maybe.
Now, how did you get that off of you? Did you just go jump in the water and get it off?
No, I wore it the entire drive home, stopped at the gas station and everything.
Dressed like that?
I had a shirt over it or dress, but still, it was very
You're like,
lumpy.
ma'am, you know what? Your gas is free today.
I'm
You
sure.
just keep pumping. You just keep pumping.
Well, anyway, he laid me down on the sand, and there's people walking next to us, and they're commenting, "What are you doing?" And each time, we're doing a photo shoot it's just for fun. It's latex paint, and everyone wanted to know. And we had some bystanders that stayed and watched for 10 minutes at a time. It was interesting. So the latex paint went on, and then he held he actually put tape over, I think
Along the side to hold the rocks on
to
while it
hold
dried.
the rocks onto the latex paint as it dried. So I have weird random tape everywhere, and I still don't know what it's going to look like. So this was all kind of an interesting situation.
But it was fun. You came away with good pictures and a good
Yeah.
story to tell.
Well, I
Right?
stood up and there's pink rocks everywhere.
We may have left a few thousand rocks on the beach.
Oh yeah, for sure. We left a
Wow.
whole pile of pink everywhere.
That's awesome.
They kept
See,
falling
that's-
off too while we were shooting.
Yeah. Yeah, you had to finish the shoot fast. So the sun was going down, the rocks were going away. It was going to
Yeah.
become the wrong kind of shoot in a hurry.
Wow. Well, that's what it's about. It's and you were having fun, right?
Oh, we had a great time.
It was bizarre. It was one of those things where you're like, I'm not sure I'm going to use this technique again. I'm glad it's in my wallet.
Yes.
And, but it's
Well,
a great time.
Brian, how do you? So the inspiration aside, how do you what is your drive for shooting these photos? Like this photo, the photo shoot that you did of Roxanne, was it because you're like, you know what, I need to add some to my portfolio, or I feel like I want to try a new lighting technique, or I just want to experiment with rocks in this kind of lighting? Like, what was your driving force?
Well, I had a series of pictures, and one of them's coming up, where I had a gal who called me one day and said, I want to have a shell bikini. And I said, I'm crafty. I can make a bikini out of shells. I got to have some leather straps and things around here. That'd be fine. And she goes, no, I just want the shells. I'm like, you want shells glued to you? And she's like, yes, that's what I want. And I'm like, this is a strange girl. Maybe I should. And I got somebody else to accompany me to that one because there is no way I'm, putting my hands on the girl who wants the shells glued to her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because that's another lesson for a mini episode. And
Yeah.
Anyway, so we shot it. It was fine. It was good. It turned into a well-paying series of people who wanted shells glued to their body and get their picture taken. And the culmination of which is a picture that's coming up here shortly. A gal came from Canada to get the shells stuck on her.
Interesting.
And it was a great series. So I'm always thinking, it's like, well, what's going to be cool? What's going to stand out? Some of it is social. Since I was, at the time, running the big meet and greets,
Yeah.
you don't want to be that guy that's shooting just like everyone else and say, come with me, you can shoot just like you are now. You want to take and you want to inspire people just a little. And sometimes that is pushing it just outside of the limits, where you're like, that's Brian. He's that guy. He's the crazy one with the shells and the rocks and the whatchamacallits.
And the gold leaf.
Yeah, and the gold leaf.
we did
Yeah.
a very similar shoot this year with the gold leaf.
So going outside of the box is really excellent self-promotion.
Yeah.
And-
Well, Brian, can you crack into a little bit, because I know you guys are going to do mini episodes on it, but from both of you guys, I would love to hear, like, how do you like manage that the day of the shoot for something like this, when it's risque and you're, potentially surrounded by people who may or may not be offended, passersby, etc. How do you find a model? You're lucky enough to have your co-host be a model, but if someone is looking for a model, just where you get them from, give us, like, I know you're going to do another episode on it, but talk about just from a high level, how do you do
give
that?
the Cliff's Notes.
Yeah.
From the photographer's perspective, or the model's perspective, somebody has inspiration, and it really doesn't have to come from the photographer. I really encourage the models. I tell them, whenever I meet a model, even if it's just a quick test shoot, I'm like, if you come up with something bizarre, or you see a picture where you're like, wow, that's really bizarre, I want to try it, call me. I will stop my day for an inspired model. So if it's really out of the box, I will use casting calls on Model Mayhem to find the model, or I will call Roxanne or Kelsey, or another model who is very brave. And but the beauty of the casting call is the model has signed on to your idea if they contact you. And as much as maybe it's not politically correct, there are different grades of models. Roxanne's gorgeous. Kelsey's
thank you.
gorgeous. I use another model that honestly is a tier down. She's still a pretty girl, but she's not magazine quality pretty. But she has tremendous heart. She will stick in that ocean until she turns blue as the sky. And so she's great that way. She'll do anything. And those people are really, really important. When you're testing an idea, don't be picky. You want the girl that signs on to the idea. It doesn't matter if she's a little the wrong shape. If she's, it doesn't matter. You're testing an idea. And that's your main thing. Because if you do a good job with grade B and C model, grade A model will sign on for the real shoot.
Yeah.
Really important. As far as site security, again, that is an issue that I'm going to talk about. I am lucky. I have got a nude beach full of basically mildly drunk people that are generally not a problem.
Yeah. At least you know they don't have weapons on them, right?
They generally don't. That said, I'm
not sure where they'd put them.
I did have a class where I had an intoxicated old guy give us a really hard time. And the advice that I was given from law enforcement is that we should carry pepper spray. Highly effective against old naked people.
What was he doing? What was the guy doing?
He was
yelling
at the models that we were just trying to take advantage of them and that we were selling their pictures into porn. And I'm like, they're hired models. That's, And oddly enough, I've got this friend and that was at the event who is a mountain of a man. He's this huge guy, and this old guy is the one he has to pick, is the giant guy that could pound him into the sand without thinking about it. And I'm thinking, man, he's really drunk. He should have picked on the short guy.
Yeah.
Fortunately, he just got tired of yelling and left.
Wow.
But there is, if you're out in nature, honestly, people are not the other site security issue that I've thought about. We have bears. We have mountain lions. And a can of high-power pepper spray called Bear Spray will stop a grizzly in its tracks. So having a can of bear spray, not a bad plan.
Very cool.
Air horn. Air horn is highly effective against somebody who's coming after you.
Oh.
Yeah, a couple of 100 decibels in someone's face, they generally will leave you alone. Also, you have a camera. Take a picture of the person that's annoying you. They don't like it.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. You say, or hold up your phone and say, "Hey, I'm streaming you live to Facebook right now. What would you like to say to 10 million people?"
Yeah.
I did have one person who got really in my face taking pictures, and basically, I'm here on a paid shoot. I'm shooting for a swimwear calendar, and I had a guy who got really in my face, and I grabbed his cheap Kodak and tossed it in the ocean.
Oh, wow.
And he was like, "I'm going to get the police." I'm like, "Go get the police. We'll be done by the time they get here."
Yeah.
I just had to, I could afford to buy a camera just to get the shoot going. It was an expensive day.
So what is, so in terms of, like, I'm familiar with regular traditional model releases, those kind of things. Are there any special considerations that you have to take that come into play when you're shooting this kind of photography, or any precautions?
I like to make sure that the release is pretty broad. I use not a complicated release because I believe I really want the model to understand the release more than anything. And just getting a release is a huge thing. So many people shoot without releases and they're like, "Oh, it doesn't matter." Well, it might not matter for your legal purposes because you're just going to put it on your wall at home. It matters having an understanding with your model.
Yeah.
And there is a great book, I believe it's called The Photographer's Survival Guide, a legal guide to photography.
Oh, yeah. Is that the one by, geez, I can't remember their names. We interviewed them on
Yeah,
TWiP,
it was on this photography thing.
Yes, I have their books. We'll link to them.
We will
and
link
you'll
to
show
that.
the book right here.
Yes, it's this book here. And it is got some releases in it, which I lightly adapted for my purposes, and I liked them because they were easy and understandable. You get these big book of a release, and they're just horrible.
Yeah.
The only thing I add to a release, and it's not for legal reasons, it is for the model's point. All of my releases say that I am not responsible for their happiness.
Oh, interesting.
And it has saved me in a couple of times because I had one model who was real unhappy because they had made a life change, and all of a sudden having naked pictures on the internet wasn't okay. And she called me and she's like, "I know my release says that you're not responsible for me being happy." And I'm like, "Oh, it worked."
Yeah.
And
You read it, huh?
And she says, "But I can't have that picture up there anymore." And it was my chance. Instead of being the villain, it forced the person to come to me and ask. And of course, I was the good guy. And I said, "Of course I'm going to take it down. Of course."
Right. Yeah. That's you don't want to be on that road of keeping people's photos up there that may materially damage them.
But I also
the
explain
book that you're talking about is the Photographer's Survival Guide. I Googled it.
Yes.
The Photographer's Survival Manual, and it's by Ed Greenberg and Jack Resnicki.
That is the one, and it should be on the shelf of every photographer. It's an easy read. You should read it, and one day that will be one of our short interviews.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
This next shot is gorgeous.
I love this picture. I
know.
loved
Her
that I took it.
pose is amazing. I like your angle too.
So this is an interesting story behind this picture. Is that model needed a ride. Generally, I don't give models a ride, but again, this was somebody that I knew because I was running events, and I suggest everybody goes to events and seminars. It is, if not for your photography, it's something you network, and it's important. Mm-hmm. I picked up this model at her house, and we're driving down to the beach, and she's like, I don't shoot nudes." Yeah, I know that. Well, we could probably shoot something risque. But this conversation slowly got to the point where I went, do you want to try taking some nude pictures? Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, for you, sure. I guess, yeah, definitely.
That's awesome.
Well, it's
That almost sounds like you're having drinks with someone. I don't go home with people on the first date. I'm just saying. Just saying. Cut to the next scene. You're having breakfast, right?
Yeah.
So
My husband says anytime a girl says that, she's going home with you.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. So why bring it up, right?
Exactly, because obviously she's thinking about it.
now, this young lady, because of her body type, and I knew it immediately, we got a couple of pictures in swimwear that were perfectly fine. I guess in both senses of the word. But because she's long and she's lanky, the nudes are amazing. And if you break that up with swimwear, it is half the picture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great shot too. Okay.
Yeah.
And Brian, do you work with a makeup artist, or are the models coming made up themselves, or what?
For most of what I do not use a makeup artist. If I'm doing something that is going to involve more preparation, here's the rule of thumb. If you don't mind your wife or girlfriend standing behind you, you can do it yourself. If you're like, wow, that's going to be awkward, as far as I'm talking body makeup and ornamentation.
Yeah.
Then I do like to pull somebody in. And then as far as makeup goes, I just direct my models if I see that they've done a good job otherwise. And I'm really light on makeup. I believe skin has texture. I believe that, people generally do a good job. And I love black and white, which is in some ways more forgiving. I also don't Photoshop my stuff. So,
really?
I'm...
It's so interesting you say that. You're the second photographer that I've interviewed or that I've spoken to that has said that. The other one was Arnie Freytag. Do you know who Arnie Freytag is?
That was great work.
Yeah. Arnie Freytag, famous Playboy photographer, interviewed him in L.A. at some event. And he, one of the things he told me was, people think we retouch everything. We don't retouch. I'm like, I don't know if I believe that.
So I'm
Where
not going to
say finding these specimens from.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say I don't retouch, but I use very lightweight tools. Almost all of my stuff is in the sadly gone aperture, and I'm actually one of our first things is my favorite program has finally stopped working smoothly on modern operating systems. So I'm on the search for the new aperture. And where most people are like, you're going to get Lightroom. Probably not. I've been searching, and I think I've settled on the new On1 RAW software. Cool. And that will be an adventure, and I think I'm going to try to get the On1 folks to come sell it to me. We'll bring them on, because digital asset management is kind of a black art. And I think it's worthy of, in our field where we come in, you come in from a Glamour shoot, you might have 1,200 pictures from a couple hours.
Yeah.
So we need powerful and really fast asset management. And
1,200 is a shot in the bucket for a wedding photographer, though.
They have.
They might shoot 1,200 on a kiss. You know?
So
every stage,
every bit.
Yeah.
So
who's it? Steve Brazel, who hosts one of our shows, Behind the Shot. He was talking about he as he walks through his process, he was talking about he uses Photo Mechanic for the culling kind of segment of the process, because it's so insanely fast for doing that. And I don't know if he drops into Lightroom after that, but he definitely uses Photo Mechanic for the sorting and culling phase.
So my early tests with the On1 software, it is as fast or faster than Photo Mechanic, plus you get pretty much all the similar stuff to Lightroom. And then if you want to go out of it, it can act as a plug-in for Lightroom, Photoshop, or any of the big boys.
Okay.
So it's an episode. I don't want to go too deep into it. This picture was a beautiful day. This has had just a little light work on some of the skin and turned black and white. And that's it.
That's beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Very nice.
Yeah, she's one of my favorite models. I have a trip planned this summer with some of our audience from the old show and hopefully the new show, where this model, hopefully Roxanne and a few others, we're going to be going out to like Mono Lake and some of the high desert, very super flat desert area and go shoot up on the desert. So
I want to go.
More news on that.
It's on my bucket list to get to Mono Lake
and
shoot there. Hopefully at a time when whatever those flies are. They have like the lake, or the salinity of the lake is the natural breeding ground for some kind of bot fly or something.
Perfect.
And they are there in biblical proportions certain times of the year. So unless you want to be eating those, you probably want to don't go.
Maybe it'll grow into a small TWiP meetup.
Yeah.
There you go.
Maybe
Yeah.
So.
Here we go.
That could be fun.
Love it.
So this next shot was taken by Brittany App, who's a wonderful photographer here on the Central Coast, and I know she does weddings as well. But she does the calendar shoots for the Ladies of the Central Coast calendar, which is produced by New Rock 1073, which is now out of business.
Yes, I wonder who's taking over the calendar.
No idea. I I don't think there's a plan for this year. Oh yeah, I know. Maybe we do.
Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, this was, you sent in photos and there was a ton of submissions. I was lucky to get in this one. I think I was January. And this was one of the shots that they
That's really nice. I like it.
Yeah.
What are you in? Are you in like a 57 Chevy or something?
I'm not great with cars.
That is
some sort of wheeled vehicle that
really shiny.
combustion based.
Yeah, that's
really shiny
that's an
vehicle
Austin
of some sort.
That's I think a first generation Austin Healey. Actually.
One of the funny things about this shoot is that they had 3 of us shooting, so they did a quarter of the calendar at each location, and this was in a mechanic's shop, and they had a bunch of these old cars, and the mechanics were literally working on the cars next to us as we are changing in their little bathroom into our lingerie and walking out. And they did not get much work done that day.
I bet they did.
Is this the German Auto downtown San Luis? Okay, so there's another thing.
Like, this guy's been tightening that one knot for an hour and a half.
Yeah. Your clunk as the bolt breaks.
It was quite funny.
This is something that is also worth building your oddball portfolio. If you just have headshots and you go to the guy that owns the auto store and go, I want to bring some pretty girls in, take a picture in your shop. He's going to look at that and he's going to go, maybe. Yeah. If you've got a pretty decent portfolio, he's going to go, do I get to be here when that happens?
Yeah, I know, right?
Exactly. We got a lot of work in the shop, so we're going to have to be here when those pretty ladies are here.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and we have to be careful with the cars. Got to protect the cars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, man. My favorite shot wasn't this one. It was a power shot in front of, I want to say a Jaguar, but I could totally be wrong.
I remember a shot in front of a first-gen Corvette.
That's what it was.
Yes.
Yeah,
that was good.
It was amazing and really cool. I mean, mostly just the angle and the idea of it. It was just very much like a almost superhero. Yeah, same location.
Oh, funny.
Yeah, but different outfit, different wardrobe.
They're both great.
Yeah, thanks.
Very cool. And did the client supply the wardrobe for that shot?
No, I did. I brought 3 or 4 outfit changes and did, I think 3 of them made the calendar. They wanted to use one of them for the front page, but ended up being too risque. So I had my regular shot for my January, and then I had 2 of them in the back, maybe one in the front and one in the back, something like that. So I ended up using a couple of my outfits.
Love it. Cool.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So
fun.
The story
full
behind
service model, wardrobe, looks, modeling talent, all in one package. You just show up and
a great voice.
Oh, thank you. Do you don't want to hear me sing? You don't want to hear me sing?
Oh, it's okay. It's not. That's a different podcast.
Yeah.
This image has a bit of a story behind it. I was going to Reno for a conference with another company. And I decided I'd pay for some of it by booking a whole bunch of shoots, which it turns out I booked a huge number of shoots for the week I was going to be there. And on the first shoot, I broke my ankle.
Oh,
jeez.
And so I'm calling everybody that I had booked and said, all right, I'm stuck in my hotel room. If you want to do the ultra cheesy thing and come to a hotel room to get your picture taken, I will work for free because I'm bored out of my mind.
Yeah.
And a couple of people came. This being one of them, and this is a plus-size model that wanted to be portrayed as not plus-size because when she was modeling earlier in her career, she was not. And she went to college, and enough said.
Yeah.
Came in nice and close. unbelievably beautiful redhead.
I wouldn't have
Very
guessed that.
interesting. Great model.
She
Just
has a
pretty
wonderful face
picture.
shape. I would never
Yeah.
have
She
known that
does.
she's plus sized, just from her face shape, because a lot of
So
times you'll
she-
get a
not-
little bit extra.
Not like a giant girl, but she was not as thin
little
as she was
hefty.
previously. But another
Oh
picture.
man, if Brian starts saying that about me, please tell me.
I remember when
I
she was
will.
12 pounds. No, with models, it'd be like, yeah, she was like 4 pounds thinner.
Yeah.
Oh,
Ooh, that's a
God.
nice
Yeah.
Valley girl accent you have.
Here, I've been
Yeah.
working on
I know,
it.
that was pretty good, right?
Oh, look.
Hey, look at
There's
this
some-
Foxy Mama.
So this photo is not my very favorite, but it's classic, and everyone's most critical of themselves. So I guess it is a good shot, of course, because Brian took it. But it's one of our first shoots together, and one of my first shoots as a model. And honored to work with Brian for one of my first shoots. Really glad that we met so early in my career.
Well, I had no idea you were new at that point.
Really?
Yeah, you just came right on it. No problem at all.
I'm not very
How
shy.
comfortable was that chair you're sitting in right there? It doesn't look very comfortable at all.
No, a little sharp. Yeah.
I mean, it looked really uncomfortable. I'm like, hey, Roxanne, go over there. And her
Did you
husband, of
leave
course,
little
was like,
bits of
yeah,
flesh
do it.
behind or
Yeah.
something?
You actually do. You get indents in your skin, but not actual
Yeah, there was
flesh.
no taking pictures
No.
of her backside for several minutes.
It's
See,
true.
this is an example of modeling, right? Because people think modeling is so glamorous and fun and easy, right? And you get out there, models get put through the ringer,
Oh,
right?
yes.
Like,
So-
you get put through the ringer for extended periods, and you have to
true.
look glamorous and gorgeous during the process.
The thing that, and this is shot in the shadow of a bluff with the ocean behind us, and the thing that made this the place to put her was that it had texture that was far enough in the background that I could make it soft so that she would pop out. And where this might not be your favorite one, everybody that sees this short series is like, excellent, excellent, excellent.
I love it.
And so you're just going to have to put up with
what are you
other
shooting
people's
here, Brian?
opinions.
What's your camera and focal length?
This is old enough. I was shooting on a 40D, Canon 40D, and a 85 millimeter 1.8, which is what I shoot most things with. Although since I've gone full frame, I now shoot a lot with 135 millimeter f2,
Gotcha.
which is a rough equivalent. One of the beauties of beach photography is you tend to have a ton of light, so you can use pretty modest gear. And when I was shooting a lot before I went all podcasty, I was tossing a Canon 40D about every 18 months for years.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I was buying them 2 and 3 at a time at one point because the way, well, at that point they were used and cheap and still make an amazing picture. The way you get a picture that doesn't look like everybody else's is by standing somewhere no one else will go.
Yeah.
So in one of my classes, there's an amazing picture of my arm and hand sticking up out of a wave with the camera. And you can't see the rest of me.
And it's real. It's
It
real
is
shot.
absolutely real. I had another shoot that ended because I was laying down on the beach with the water at my feet and the model laying out flat, and it ended when a big rogue wave came in, picked both of us up, moved us 6 feet up on the beach, took out the camera I was holding, took out the backup camera in my bag. Shoot was over.
Yeah. Oh man, that's an
I was like,
expensive
two.
shoot. Two.
But I
Oh,
had a
man.
third one. I had another one hidden away. Now that I'm shooting a full frame camera, I'm a little more careful, but not that much.
He's still out in the water
Yeah.
or on the rocks or like the
I get
weirdest.
pretty wet.
Yeah, the weirdest positions.
I
but-
actually bought a Honda Element because I knew it was going to handle getting wet inside better than other cars.
That's cool. Well, that's the whole purpose of tools, right? I mean, people buy tools and baby them, and I'm guilty of that too. You buy a new camera and put it in the bag, and it's all pristine, and every lens has its little pocket, and everybody's happy, and then you don't shoot with it, right? It just sits there.
I am really, I like the trend towards waterproof equipment.
Yeah.
For many reasons, and my next generation of equipment, I won't buy anything that isn't weatherproof.
Yeah. Good.
Should be worth the investment.
Yeah, there's some really nice We just bought a camera yesterday that's underwater camera.
Oh,
good.
And they're not cheap, but the good ones are, you can drop them from 10 feet up.
Roxanne's going on a little trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool.
It's very exciting.
I tried to sell her my new camera here on the desk, but she said it wasn't practical.
That's really not going to do the scuba diving
gonna-
and stuff that I
No,
want
it's
to
not.
do.
Roxanne, I think you guys are going international. I think you may need to take a drone with you. Just to get some.
Can you
They're
imagine?
there are going to be some crazy shots out there from the air that probably never have been done before.
I can't
You
even
know,
imagine.
some of these little pocketable drones are pretty awesome.
The thing is, we're trying not to take too many electronics because there's a lot of mugging and things where we're going.
Yeah.
So-
There's the charging issues and all that.
That too, and we already have transistors whatever. There's a way to transition from that many volts to this many volts. We have one
converter.
of those. Yeah, a converter that saves your equipment. But still, I don't want to risk it on too many expensive things.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Bringing old
Yeah,
iPads
that's always
or
a line,
iPods.
right? There's that balance of
Yeah.
we have the technology to make interesting shots, but do I want to put that technology at risk in this strange location?
Yeah.
Or
Especially
do
for
I
2
just
months.
do I say to hell with it and get the shots, and if I lose my stuff, I lose it? You know, it's like
it's a tough
yeah,
one. It's a
it is
toss-up.
tough. It is tough. Or do I just go and enjoy myself and go, commando like Indiana Jones and just, no gear at all and just have fun and don't,
I can't do it without a camera. There's got to be a camera.
Yeah.
Well, your cell phone, you'll have your cell
The
phone.
good
with you.
No,
news
I
is
won't have
that-
my cell phone. We're not even
Oh.
bringing cell phones.
Wow.
Nope.
That-
They don't even work over there. Why would we bring one?
You should buy yourself a burner when you get
We
there.
are. We're gonna get one
Okay.
just for text messages
Okay.
Yeah, and check
and
in.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah, but just remember how quickly to put in help and your GPS coordinates.
That's funny. Yeah, we'll have a burner.
Good.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about our plans for the future.
Yeah.
What is
I think we should do more episodes.
Maybe. I mean, we already
Okay, we
have
built
a bunch
everything.
recorded, so I
Oh
hope.
yeah, we could release those.
I hope we
Great
can just
idea.
go with the ones we've already done.
That's
So,
right. Yeah.
Our first release after this will be a portfolio review with Steve Brokaw, a great portraitist, fashion photographer,
I've heard of that guy.
friend of the show.
Yes.
Frederick and I ran into him at the Out of Chicago conference, which shockingly, Out of Chicago is another one of our mini episodes that'll be coming up where we're going to talk about where Out of Chicago is going because it's a great photo conference. More later on that. The show, as we said, we're going to be on this TikTok cycle of big show, little show. Every couple of weeks, you'll have a big show. Every couple of weeks, have a little show. We are doing 2 seasons a year. The seasons cover most of the year, but there will be some little gaps so that we can actually go take some pictures now and then. And we are going to be obviously integrated on the This Week in Photo Network.
Yay!
Yep. You will be in the feed and all of that stuff.
Very exciting.
So how, since we've got you here, how is that their network? What's next up besides our humble little show?
Your show, well, we've launched a couple of shows over the last quarter in 2016. We're in 2017 now. So we launched Behind the Shot with Steve Brazel, which is a single shot exploration show where Steve takes one photographer and one of their images and they dissect it and get into the DNA of the photo.
Super
and
deep dive.
super deep dive, the story around it, all that stuff, but it's all about that one photo.
Love it.
Yeah, we've also launched Inside the Lens with Don Komarechka, which is kind of our Neil deGrasse Tyson meets photography type show, where he talks about the science of photography, the science of light, the science of, all that stuff. He's a big macro guy, so he gets into that a lot. He does gear teardowns. He's that. If there was a propeller head hat, he would be the guy that would wear it and it would look correct on him. So,
You talk to Don and you're like, I really wish he lived next door, but I'd have to move to Canada.
yeah.
He is just the smartest, nicest person,
Yeah.
and his work is superb. He is the world's premier snowflake photographer.
Interesting.
Yeah.
He's the only
Yeah.
person you can call a snowflake, and it's a compliment.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I have some of his work hanging in my house. He does some amazing work, and he is the geek's geek, I think, because he is he's one of those people that makes you realize how much you don't know when you just talk to him and he's just being pedestrian about what he's talking about. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So in really loving Don's work, and not to make it a Don segment, but I like to use photographers that outclass me in something as a challenge.
Yeah.
And so I shoot gigapan images, my landscape work, and I have been working on macro gigapans.
Interesting.
So
Look at that. That's cool.
I played a little bit with somebody's microscope and taken a whole bunch of images and joining them, and it was terrible. But I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So that's one of my projects. I'm working with film photography, which I'm sure I will bore everyone on at some point. But and then I'm doing some crazy super high definition stuff. Should be a lot of fun.
I love that. I love that. Light at the end of the tunnel. I was thinking light at the end of the extension tube for the
Yes. They have got
Witty.
This is completely off the subject, but I just bought a set of macro bellows off of eBay that were cheap, and they're actually really quite good.
Yeah.
Love that stuff.
Doesn't have to be expensive to be good, right?
So I'm going to take a wild guess. If you want to get a hold of Frederick, you can navigate over to thisweekinphoto.com and use the contact link.
Yep, that's right. That's where I am. Or you can find me on most social media networks, if not all of them, under my name, which is just Frederick Van, first name, middle name.
If you'd like to get a hold of us, you can find our link on This Week in Photo and send us a traditional message. But since we deal a little more visual than everyone else, we would be happy to have you send in your pictures. If you want to simply share your work with the world, we're going to be looking for user-submitted pictures. Sometimes they'll be in the main show if it's running a little short. Sometimes they'll be part of the short show. If you want to send those to us, it is at twip.glam@gmail.com. That's twipglam@gmail.com.
Thanks again to our sponsors, guests, and This Week in Photography for making this podcast possible.
Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, or check out our unedited episodes on thisweekinphoto.com.
We'll see you next time on TWiP GLAM.
Bye-bye.
See you guys.
See ya.